I set the test down on the sink, then picked it up again, looked at it, and suddenly it was like someone up above had hit the mute button. Total silence. The world just stopped. Even my heartbeat slowed down. And in that silence, I heard the first clear thought. I can't tell him. My name is Rachel Carter. I'm 31 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And yes, I hid my pregnancy from my own husband. For a whole 9 months. Every heartbeat, every tiny elbow moving inside me, I kept it a secret. He didn't know. No one knew. Especially him. I know you might already be judging me. How is that even possible? How can you not tell the father you're carrying his child? But if you think I'm a monster, just wait until you hear why I did it. This isn't a story about betrayal. It's not about revenge. It's a story about fear, about pressure, about living in a marriage where love always comes with an if. If I say the right thing, if I don't let him down, if I don't make him angry. And at some point, you stop living, you just survive. And when a new life, literally a new life is at stake, you make decisions you never thought you could justify before. But now, I stand before you as a woman who has been through it all, and I want to tell you everything. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday. It was early spring and I was coming home from work. Back then, I was doing part-time bookkeeping for a logistics company just so I wouldn't be stuck at home all day. The house was Adam's territory, my husband. Adam always said he knew the system better. He managed our finances, decided what and when we bought things, where we dined, even who I should talk to. He didn't hit me. He didn't yell. He just controlled. Gently, skillfully, as if it was all for my own good. And the scariest part? For a long time I believed that this was love. That Tuesday, I felt something was wrong with me, dizzy, nauseous. I blamed it on stress, but just in case, I bought a test at the pharmacy near my office CVS, close to South Tryon Street. I took the test at home, in the bathroom on the second floor. Adam was downstairs, talking on the phone. And there were 2 lines, clear, no doubt. My head started buzzing. Not with joy. Not with tears of happiness. But panic. If he finds out, what will he do? What if he decides I can't work anymore, or that I have to give birth at the hospital where his cousin works because she's more reliable? Suddenly, I realized I was afraid to tell my husband I was pregnant. And the scariest part? I understood why I was afraid. That's how it began. At first, silence for a couple of days, then a week, then a month, and soon it became easier to hide it than to admit it. I started changing my clothes, more layers, hoodies. I put a plate on the table and said I already ate. I scheduled manicures and went to a women's clinic. I created a second phone account just for my medical records. And every time I heard Adam say, "I know my wife, she could never hide anything from me," my chest tightened, but I stayed silent. Not because I didn't love him, but because I loved myself too little. And I was afraid that if I gave him control over this, he would take everything away from me, even what hadn't been born yet. I'll tell you how I managed to keep it secret, how I gave birth alone, what he did when he found out, and how our whole life fell apart in one night. But do you know what's the strangest thing? Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy. It frees. And it was from this truth that everything began my journey back to myself. To my true self. You know, from the outside, our marriage looked like a Pinterest dream. He had a firm handshake, a dazzling white smile, and a perfectly tailored suit. I had a soft voice, flawless hair, and a pie in the oven right at 6 o'clock. Our Instagram was full of beautiful photos. Candlelit dinners, trips to Charleston New Year's photo shoots with balloons and a sign that read, "Future goals, baby and beach house." Smiles textbook perfect. Captions like those of travel bloggers. Likes in the hundreds. But behind those photos, there was coldness. Adam was what people call a natural leader. Colleagues loved him, the office listened when he spoke, and he could walk into a room and instantly command attention. He worked as a project manager at a large IT company, constant meetings, clients, successes. Everyone thought he was a role model, stable, strong, charismatic. He really knew how to make an impression. But at home, he knew how to control. Not harshly, not physically. He acted more quietly, more softly, like everything he did was out of care. Are you sure you want to wear that dress? It makes you look tired. Why spend money on your course? We don't even know if it'll bring any income. I'm just worried about you. I don't like how much you're talking to Jessica. She's a bad influence on you. And with every one of these caring remarks, I cut off a piece of myself. Fewer friends, fewer opinions, less desire to argue. At some point, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who was afraid. Not for her life, but for his approval. I called it the perfect life. But you know when I realized something was seriously wrong? When I noticed, I stopped laughing around him. Real laughter, not haha, funny meme laughter, but the kind that bursts from your chest, from your soul. I stopped joking. I was afraid to look stupid. He often rolled his eyes when I interrupted him, or acted inappropriately. He could leave the room in the middle of a conversation, or just say, "It's not important, let's not talk about it." I started living by his schedule. Waking up at 6:30 to make breakfast. Making sure the house was always clean, the dinner looked pretty not for us, but for the photos. Because every Friday he'd say, "You'll post a photo today, right? We need to show our people everything's fine." Our people meant his friends, his followers, his mom. Everything had to be perfect. I became like a house facade. Perfect paint on the outside, emptiness inside. And then, one day, while we were having dinner, stuffed peppers, white wine, candles, he turned to me and said, "You've become kind of boring, Rach. You used to have a spark. Where did it go?" That broke me. Because he was the one who blew out that spark. Slowly, over years. And now he complains I'm not shining? That's when the thought first flashed through my mind. I'm living with someone I'm afraid to disappoint. Not because he would leave me, but because if he left, I'd have to figure out who I am without him. And that scared me more than anything. Now I know, that was the first warning bell. The one that would later become a siren. I still remember how my hand trembled as I held that stupid plastic test between my fingers. There were no fireworks, no confetti on it. Just 2 lines. I was sitting on the toilet lid, in my own bathroom, wearing a gray robe. It was Tuesday, 9:30 in the morning. And I just froze. Positive. I always thought that when this happened, I'd cry tears of joy. That I'd run out of the bathroom, glowing, saying, "We did it! We're going to be parents!" But you know what my first reaction was? Panic. Not joy, not relief, not tears of happiness. Pure, burning fear. I wasn't thinking about the baby. I was thinking about him. About how he'd react. About how he'd twist everything to fit himself. About how he'd turn this into his project like everything else in our life. Because if Adam controls something, he controls it completely, without compromise. From the color of the curtains to who I have coffee with. He won't see me as a mother, he'll see an opportunity. An opportunity to show how perfect a husband he is, how caring a father. An opportunity to stage a photo shoot with the caption, "Coming soon," and gather a bunch of likes. He'd turn it into a performance. But everything behind the scenes I'd have to carry alone. And I knew if he found out, he'd take control. Of me. Of the baby. Of our life. I put the test down on the sink. Then picked it up again. Looked at it. And suddenly, it was as if someone upstairs muted the sound. Complete silence. The world stopped. Even my heartbeat slowed. And in that silence, I heard the first clear thought. I can't tell him. It wasn't a decision born of anger. It was an instinct to survive. If he knew, he'd schedule our lives for the next 9 months. Pick the doctor. Buy the chair. Decide the baby's gender before I even thought about what I wanted. He'd take this moment from my hands. And turn it into another decoration. I didn't want to share this. Not because I was angry, but because it was my only chance to live something on my own terms. In this marriage, in this life, in this body. Yes, it's selfish. Yes, it's scary. But if I had told him back then, I wouldn't be where I am now. This isn't a story about how I lied to my husband. It's a story about how one woman realized, sometimes, to survive you have to keep something to yourself. Even the most important things. Because until you're safe, even the truth can be dangerous. At first, I thought I wouldn't be able to hide it for even a month. But time passed. And somehow, I managed. Every morning I woke up with the same question in my head. Will he notice? Will he figure it out today? I worked from home remotely for a marketing firm based in Austin. Zoom made it easy to hide. My colleagues only saw my shoulders and smile. Adam, my husband, worked at the office, left early, came back late. And between those moments, I had a few hours a day just to breathe. I started wearing loose hoodies, his t-shirts, baggy dresses. Anything that could hide my belly. He asked why I stopped wearing skinny jeans or leggings. I said I was just uncomfortable, or that I had hormonal issues, bloating, fatigue. He nodded, not really paying attention. It was awful, and a relief. I began avoiding physical intimacy. At first, gently, softly, then firmly. I said I wasn't feeling well, that I had migraines. That work was stressful. He got angry. Said I was cold, that it seemed like I didn't love him anymore. But I was just protecting the baby. And myself. I felt like if he found out everything would collapse. I lived with that tension like a constant background noise. Always there, intrusive. Waking up sweaty, going to bed anxious. Sometimes I'd lift my shirt and look in the mirror. My belly was growing. I'd stroke it and whisper, "Please don't give us away, not yet, just a little longer." I found a clinic on the other side of town in Huntersville, almost 40 minutes away from home. One doctor, one office. I gave my maiden name Green. I'd come in at the earliest hour, when Adam was still asleep. Then I'd go back home like nothing happened. Hiding the ultrasounds, the tests, the emotions. Once, during an appointment, I was allowed to hear the heartbeat. So fast, so clear. I couldn't hold back. I cried right there on the exam table. The nurse asked if I had someone to support me. I lied. Said, "Yes, my husband, of course. He's just at work." I couldn't admit I had no one. No one at all. The baby moved for the first time in the middle of the 6th month. It felt like a butterfly inside, or a gentle nudge. I was sitting alone in the kitchen, eating cereal from the box, and froze. My first real happiness in a long time. A small sign from within. I'm not alone. And then terror. What if he walks in and I can't hide it? What if he sees, hears, feels? Those 9 months were the strangest time of my life. The loneliest and the most magical time at once. I lived in fear but also in anticipation. I was alone but not really anymore. I was hiding but a new life was growing inside me. I didn't know what would come next. But I knew one thing for sure, if I wanted to protect this baby, I'd have to go all the way alone. By the 7th month, it had become almost impossible to hide the truth. I could no longer stand on my feet for more than 20 minutes. I started getting swollen. My belly no longer fit even under the widest hoodie. And Adam began to notice. At first, it was just casual questions. "Are you okay? You look tired. What's wrong? Why aren't you eating anything? Headache again?" I smiled. Looked away. Answered through clenched teeth. "It's fine, just stress, probably hormones. Things happen." He didn't back off. "You're not pregnant, are you?" I laughed. A little too loudly, a little too fake. "Pregnant? Seriously, Adam? Come on. Of course not." He watched me. Too closely. I turned away. Went to the bathroom. Closed the door. Looked in the mirror. My belly stuck out, my skin was stretched tight. I stroked it and whispered, "Quiet, please, just a little longer, just a little." I started avoiding people, even neighbors, even my parents. Mom wrote, "When are you coming to Charlotte? I miss you. I want to see you." I made up excuses. "We're busy. Adam is working. I'm a little sick." But really, I was scared that someone would just see me and understand everything. I had nightmares that Adam was standing in the bedroom doorway, watching, silent, without words, that he understood everything, that he was yelling, that he was taking the baby away, taking me away, that I was losing everything because I stayed silent for too long. I woke up in a cold sweat and realized I woke up, but the fear stayed. Adam became more suspicious. He said, "You're acting strange, like you're hiding something from me." I tried not to tremble. "I'm just burnt out, overworked. You said it yourself, I work too much." He nodded. Not immediately, reluctantly. But I could see he didn't believe me. He doubted. Every day I felt my mask cracking. How hard it was to pretend. How hard it was to keep a straight face when inside there was nothing left to hide. I thought, maybe it's time to tell the truth? Maybe if I explain, he'll understand? That I was scared, that I wanted to protect myself, that I just couldn't do otherwise. But then I heard him on the phone. With colleagues. With friends. That tone. Harsh. Controlling. And I realized no. He won't understand. He won't forgive. He won't listen. I was not afraid of his yelling. But his silence, his coldness, his ability to make it seem like I'm the traitor, that I'm the one who destroyed everything. And so, day after day, I kept playing along. It got scarier. It got harder. But I kept going, because stopping was the scariest thing of all. And somewhere deep inside I already knew, this lie won't save me. It will only delay the moment when everything comes out. I thought I still had a couple of weeks left. I had calculated everything. The baby was supposed to be born in mid-April, and now it was the end of March. I was feeling unwell, but not critically. It was Friday. I was home alone as usual. Adam had gone to Houston for a conference. And then it started. The pain. So sharp that I couldn't get up off the floor. I tried to breathe like they taught in a YouTube video. The contractions weren't like in the movies. They were chaotic, wild. I wasn't ready. I didn't have time to be ready. I called an ambulance. The nurse was shouting on the phone. "Ma'am, how far along are you?" I was silent. "Ma'am? 8 months. Why aren't you registered? Why didn't anyone warn us earlier?" I arrived at Methodist Hospital in Dallas. They immediately took me to the maternity ward. The labor was fast, too fast. I didn't have time to really get scared or to feel the moment. 2 hours later, I was holding my son in my arms. So small, pink, real. I cried, both from happiness and fear. And 3 hours later, Adam showed up. I hadn't even told anyone the nurse had called him as the emergency contact. He walked into the room, and everything inside him froze. He saw me. He saw the baby. And he simply asked, "Is this yours?" I looked at him, not believing it. "Adam, you mean to tell me you hid your pregnancy from me for 8 months?" I was scared. Scared of what? That I'd think it's not my kid? Because that's exactly what it looks like now. I tried to explain everything. That it wasn't out of spite, not out of revenge. But out of fear. Out of despair. Out of feeling like he would take everything away from me, the baby, from both of us. But he didn't hear me. He paced the room, clutching his head. He said, "I was with you all this time, and you lied to me, every day. You looked me in the eyes and lied." I cried. "I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you everything. I was afraid of losing everything. And now you've lost me." And he left. Just left. I stayed lying there. In the maternity ward, with the baby in my arms. Alone. Without my husband. With the truth that finally came out and destroyed everything. But even then, even through the pain, I looked at the little one and thought, I would do it all again. For him. I knew it would happen. From the very moment he left the room, I knew he wouldn't believe. He wouldn't want to believe. A few days after being discharged, I got a message from a lawyer. An official demand, a DNA test. For paternity. I sat there holding the baby and stared at the paper, feeling numb. Not because I was scared I knew who the father was, but because it was humiliating. A test. Suspicion. From the person I had lived with for 6 years. The person I shared a bed with, breakfast, a mortgage. But I agreed. Of course I agreed. A week later, the result came back. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Yes, he was the father. Biologically. Not emotionally. Not morally. But on paper. I waited for him to call. To say something. But instead, I got a call from his mother. How could you hide this? Why didn't you tell us? Do you understand how this looks? To us, to the neighbors, to the co-workers. They weren't shocked that a baby was born. They were shocked that it happened without their control, without their involvement. Adam's mother even asked, Are you sure this isn't some kind of scheme? I didn't yell. I didn't make excuses. I simply said, I did what I had to do to protect myself and the baby. Adam was still silent, no calls, no messages. I decided enough. I gathered both families, mine quiet, forever silent, and his loud, demanding. We sat down at the table, and I told them everything. Everything. How I was afraid of his reaction. How he pressured me long before the pregnancy. How every no from me became manipulation. How I felt like I wasn't a wife, but a project that had to be perfect. I told them how I stood alone in the bathroom with a positive test. How I secretly went to the doctor. How I cried at night, feeling the baby move, hiding my face in a pillow under a loose sweater. It was quiet. Even his mother was silent. Then my mom, for the first time in a long time, stood up and said, I didn't know, but now I'm proud of you. Dad just nodded. His father looked at his son and said, So what now, Adam? He said nothing. And you know what? It was the first time in a long time that silence worked in my favor. When he left, I realized it was forever. There were no screams, no tears, just the door closing behind him. A heavy sound that echoed in my soul. I was left alone, holding the baby in my arms, who looked at me with those helpless eyes. His tiny fingers clutching my clothes, while I felt my heart breaking inside. But this pain, as deep as it was only part of the truth. Because with his leaving came something else, something strange, new but incredibly precious, freedom. Freedom not from something, freedom to be myself. Freedom to stop hiding, to stop fearing. Freedom to breathe deeply without looking back at the shadows of the past. For the first time in many years, I felt truly alive. As if someone had taken off a heavy mask, and I finally saw the world without distortion. Of course, it was scary. It was lonely. But fear no longer controlled me. I stopped fearing the future, stopped fearing myself. I was learning to move forward for myself and for my child. Step by step, breathing in every moment, building a new life. Now I know you can lose a lot, but you can't lose yourself. And this feeling to breathe freely became my greatest victory. After all the chaos settled, I began building my new life. I worked remotely. A flexible schedule allowed me to be close to my baby and at the same time earn a living. Moving to a small, cozy town in Texas was a fresh start for me and my child. A new apartment, new faces, new hopes. Every day was a challenge, but also an opportunity. An opportunity to be better, to be stronger. My child was growing and every day brought me more joy. His first smile, first steps, and then the first word he said just to me, Mama. In that moment, all fears and doubts faded away. I realized I hadn't lost everything like I once thought. I found myself. My little miracle became my support and inspiration. And I knew ahead lies only a bright future, one I will build with my own hands. You might not understand me. You might judge me. I haven't always understood myself. But in that very moment when I made that decision, I chose life. I chose what seemed like the only way to save myself and my child. Life isn't always easy. It's not always beautiful. It's full of fears, doubts, and pain. But living in fear, that's even scarier. Sometimes the truth frightens us the most. Sometimes it destroys what we're used to. But if the truth destroys everything, maybe that everything wasn't real anymore. Better to be alone than live under control. Better to be free than fear every single day. I made a choice to live a real life. And if you're scared right now, if you feel like the truth might destroy everything, remember, true strength lies in being honest with yourself, in the courage to follow your own path, in the ability to choose life, even when it feels like there's no choice at all. I'm here to tell you, it's possible. You are not alone. And your truth is your path to freedom.